Welcome to the Vault Podcast and Reviews, where music still matters. You can check out all our shows at YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Podomatic. Please rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe. Also, make sure to check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you like what we're doing and you'd like to contribute to help us keep the show going, check out patreon.com/thevault. I'm going to start this review out a little bit different. You've heard people talk about how they miss rock and roll being dangerous. Brent, have you heard people say that before?
I have.
Okay. In my opinion, I miss rock and roll being weird.
Yep.
There's too many people that are trying to be hip and macho and cool, and we had the hair bands, and sometimes there's bands that come along that just are so far out there. I'm not talking like Alice Cooper, David Bowie out there. I'm talking like way, way, way out there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of them that we're doing today, Hail Spirit Noir, the album Oi Magoi. I mean, that title right there should tell you all you need to know about kind of how this album is going to shape out. The band's from Greece, and this album is from 2014. I don't even remember how I stumbled onto this. It was one of those YouTube snowball music nights. Let's see, what was the song I heard? Blood Guru is the song that I heard first, and I was immediately hooked. I mean, this is a mixture of black metal, psychedelic, which I love, progressive rock, which I love. I'm just blown away. Brent, I can almost guarantee you had never heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
After your first listen, what was your kind of overall impression of the band?
Well, the very first listen, I'm assuming it was Blood Guru you sent me. I really don't remember. I'm assuming it was Blood Guru that you sent me, and I didn't know what the hell you'd sent me. I mean, straight up listening to it, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, this is the weirdest shit I've ever heard in my life. But I listened to it, and I was like, I will give it this. This is very, 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 very different. And that's honestly probably the best way to describe this band.
It's one of the probably most unique listening experiences I've had since, I don't know that you're a huge Genesis fan, but like the way, way back Genesis stuff with Peter Gabriel, or
wow.
like a lot of the early Pink Floyd stuff. I mean, like it's interesting. That's all. That's the word that can describe it all. Like I said, black metal, psychedelic, and a little progressive. The album is just all over the place. It's up and it's down, and it's heavy and it's fast and slow, and then it's soothing almost at times. The music is extremely technical. Overall, probably one of the most original sounds. What else you got to add as far as it just being just from a music standpoint?
I will say this. The entire time I was listening to this album for the review, this is the first time I'd ever listened to it except for like one or two songs. And I wasn't even for sure which ones those were. And that's a while back. So I was coming to this, pretty fresh, and I kept thinking to myself, and don't misunderstand me here, but I kept thinking to myself that this is like the black metal Opeth. And what I mean by that is Opeth kind of brought, whenever they, came out and everything, they brought all these different weird things in to kind of this death metal sound. Their music's just so varied for the most part, especially, like some of the earlier albums, and then you've got like, your difference between like Damnation, Deliverance, and Blackwater Park and stuff. Anyway, not to get off on Opeth, but that's what it made me think of. It's like these guys are kind of doing with black metal what Opeth kind of did with death metal at the beginning. And it's just bring all this different kind of weird stuff and throw it together with amazing musicianship, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison. If we want to kind of expound on that a little bit more, I think Opeth might go in the more softer, soothing direction, if that's maybe makes sense. This band goes more in the psychedelic realm.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's not that it's super. The album is not super heavy.
No.
There are heavy parts and heavy riffs, but overall, it definitely veers more on the psychedelic aspect, I would think. What do you think?
No, yeah, and that's a fair point. And it's, coming from the lyric guy, it's also psychedelically satanic.
Oh, yeah, and that's where the black metal element is in this, really.
And it is honestly some of the most bizarre. Which there again, it goes back to the psychedelic stuff, like you said, just some of the most bizarre stuff. And it's, that's all I can really say. It's just, psychedelically satanic. That's kind of what I
And
think.
really, I can't break this. Like Blood Guru was a definite standout track. The Mermaid I liked, and Hunters. We'll get into my nitpicks. That's half the album, like because it's so short and there's only 7 tracks. I mean, there's not a. I can't say that those other songs really stand out. They're just all really, really good, and they're all good for different reasons because they all sound different. Anything else musically before we jump into a quick take on the vocals?
As far as musically, it's very, very, very well done. Like you said, the album is absolutely everywhere. You have to listen to it. I've said this about a couple reviews that'll end up being posted around a similar time as this will. But you have to listen to it from the beginning to the end because you literally don't know what the hell's coming up to happen. I mean, it's actually like kind of
yeah.
It's almost like watching I don't want to say like a horror movie or something like that, but it's like a really good like movie because you don't know really what's going to happen. It keeps you, guessing. And that's what this album does better than almost any of them I've heard in a very long time.
And I think there's something for everybody on here because, if you like black metal, there's enough of it, but there's not one genre really that's kind of overpowering. Nope. Because, I said this is primarily leans on the psychedelic side, but then there's some parts in there that are not, that are just kind of maybe a little bit more metal or just a little bit more, you don't know what, like maybe classic rock or just progressive rock. So a little bit, there's something in here for everybody. So, if you're one of those genre sticklers that only listens to the true stuff, black metal, true cult black metal, or, you only want to listen to like King Crimson if you're one of those progressive rock worshipers or something, give this a chance because there's just something for everybody. And like you said, you never know what's coming next. On to the vocals. The pretty good mix of harsh and clean vocals, kind of sporadically, really, the way that they're kind of thrown into the songs. There's times where maybe the music isn't as high, and you can hear a lot more of the vocals on kind of the guttural stuff, and it didn't sound as good as when it had like louder music in the background, if that makes sense. What did you think of the vocals?
I thought it was interesting because, like you said, it goes from kind of clean to your harsh to chanting to kind of soft spoken, like you're not 100% sure if they're actually saying anything, and then kind of all back around again. So I mean, it's very, very I don't honestly, I don't know how else to say it other than just weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't. And I know that's an awful description for somebody trying to review an album, but that's honestly one of the best things I can say about this is it's just so weird.
And that's why I opened the show with it saying that, sometimes we need these just straight up, we don't know what it is, albums to come along and just kick us right in the face. Yeah. And that's what this did to me. I'm completely blown away with it. One other thing I'll touch on, Blood Guru, I'm pretty sure there's a xylophone in that song.
I did not listen that closely, but
I don't know. I don't know that that's 100% accurate, but it sounds to me like there's a xylophone. I could be wrong. But
to tell you the truth, I would assume there is.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I really honestly would assume that there is one. Like I said, I didn't listen that closely to it. I mean, I did. I listened to the album, but I didn't sit there and try to pick out each instrument like some people do. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me a bit, and that should tell you something that nobody's surprised that this band has a xylophone. Their next album probably have like a saxophone solo or something. They'll have a little jazz number.
That wouldn't surprise me. That's where all that progressive rock would come in because a lot of those bands did that. So
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some of the negatives. I'll go first because it's short. 7 tracks. I mean, the songs are long enough that you get your money's worth out of the 7 tracks. But, I run onto something if it's so weird or so good, I just want more of it. And maybe less is more in a situation like this, but really that's about the only negative I have is just kind of how short it was. And then, like I said, bits and pieces of different styles of vocals just kind of I wouldn't really be a huge fan of in certain spots of the songs. But really, that's all I've got. So what did you not like about this one?
The thing for me was it's an album that's almost, and this is where we've always kind of varied on music, it's almost too weird for me to want to listen to it all the time. Now, don't take that as like, what the hell's wrong with this guy, type complaint. It's because the musicianship is amazing. And number one, that's what I care about in music. If they can play and they do it well, I'm happy. But it's almost too weird for me to want to play it all the time. And it's one of those albums that I've been open and honest ever since we started this that there's lines that I don't like crossing, and black metal typically crosses them at the very beginning.
Of course.
And I'm a lyrics guy, and so it's kind of, I'm always torn between like, my God, I love this music, and can I ignore the lyrics? And so if you're of a sensitive sort, the lyrics are going to be potentially problematic. Let me say it like that. They don't go near as far as like Behemoth's, like the Satanist.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not there. They're not on that level at all. But it's kind of interesting anyway, just to say the least, because like I said, the lyrics are as weird as the music. But no, if that doesn't bother you, then obviously that's not going to be a negative. It's just something I have. I've always had it with black metal, and it's always kind of been a love-hate relationship with the genre. Other than that, I enjoyed most of the vocal work. Sometimes it ran into it. Honestly, some of the vocals, especially the clean, reminded me a lot of Opeth. Like whenever Opeth went to clean vocals, it just the voices were too similar to me at times, and it's at times because it's not all the time. But other than that, there's really not a lot to say because, I mean, the music's so varied. It's so well done. The production is so well done that it's hard to find too many negatives.
I'm going to jump on a couple things you said. I'll start out with, you said it was a little too weird for you.
Right.
I don't want to hear another band that sounds like this.
No,
A lot of times you hear a band and you're like, oh man, who else sounds like this?
Right.
No,
right.
I don't want that with this.
Nope.
And so this, if I wanted to listen to it all the time, this would be it. I would not want to listen to any more copycat bands. And, sometimes come on, how many bands out there try to sound like Black Sabbath
right.
or try to sound like AC/DC
right.
or, whatever. But this isn't, I don't want to hear another band. So, and then on the lyrics, I'm not a lyric person, as most of you guys know that listen to the show, but you listen to songs and you hear lyrics
right.
most of the time. I was so like, I guess I'll use the word spellbound by how weird this music was. Yeah. I didn't even pay attention to what was going on with the lyrics because I was trying to pick out all what's going on in the background with all this music because it's just so far out there.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair about the lyrics issue, the version I listened to on YouTube, I just pulled up, searched for the album on YouTube, full album, clicked it, first one. I don't remember which song it was. Let me look at it real quick. I believe it was Demon for a Day.
Okay.
Is the song that was playing, and the video actually shows, like, it goes through the book that goes with it, like the CD, and it's got the lyrics on there. So I'm like, oh, hey, cool. Because usually this style of music, you can't understand it half the time anyway, which is how I get around most of the lyrics in black metal. And I got to reading this, and I'm like, holy crap. And it was just one of those, it's like, dude, this is some messed up stuff. And it's not overly violent, like Cannibal Corpse or death metal or something. But at the same time, it was one of those, had it not come up and like shown me the lyrics on there, I probably would have been like you and not even have really noticed it. The other one is the song like, what is it? Satan is Time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like literally just like he says Satan like 30 times over, like in a row it seemed. And it was just like, okay, I'm not that sensitive. It's a name. But can we?
Well, see, at that point, it almost becomes cheesy to me.
And yeah, that's what I was saying. It was almost like, okay, can we move on? I get what you're saying. Please move on. And I mean, that's not, the Christian in me coming out and being offended. It was just, I didn't think it needed repeated that many times for the song. But then again,
well, if we're going to talk about that, I got a hot take right now that people are going to probably bash me for. You want to talk about cheesy Satan stuff? We could talk about Ghost all day long. That band.
Oh God.
Talk about. Yeah, well, we're going to have to do some reviews on them later because there's some good and some bad. But, man, talk about overhyped, really. I mean. For real, yeah. I've never been a big Ghost fan. But anyway, I mean, enough about the lyrics and stuff. If it bothers you, if you're like me, it bothers you, it'll be a negative against the album. But honestly, it's not like it's a album demanding you worship Satan or, anything blasphemous. It's just, I would rather listen to something else as far as lyrically, but as far as musically goes, this album is top notch. One of the best we've ever reviewed, is in my opinion, musically. All right, so jumping into the review, 1 star being the worst, 5 stars being the best. What do you give this album?
See, I'm torn because there again, like I said, it's hard for me to want to listen to it over and over and over. But at the same time, I can't deny how good, just how refreshingly weird it is. While it's too weird to want to listen to over and over, it's like you said, it is very refreshing to know that a band is going out there and doing something amazingly original. So I'm going to actually give it a 4.25. It's probably a little bit better than that, but as far as my personal taste and willingness to want to listen to it over and over, 4.25. But it's a definite must buy if you enjoy weird music.
We're once again pretty close. I'm giving it a 4.5. Just wish that had a few more songs, even like 3 more songs, probably would have gotten this a little bit higher for me. And then nitpicking on the vocals a little bit on certain points. But honestly, this is like progressive rock or metal, black metal, and psychedelic. Those like 3 of my favorite genres blended into one. So, I mean, I couldn't give this, like, I think the floor of this review would be like a 3.5, even if the rest of it sucked, just because it's so weird. It's so out there, so experimental, mixing those 3 together. I'd never heard anything like it before.
Yeah, and the nice thing is they do it all well. I mean, it's not like it's not like they did it just cheesy to throw it in there and be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if it had this sound? No, it's actually very well done and very well put together. So, I mean, it's beautifully weird and psychedelically satanic.
Man, you're using all these rhyme.
Well, you know, you got to do what you got to do. I quit drinking like a while back for Lent. I say a while back. Like I took off beer for Lent, so it's like starting to affect my head. So,
well, this isn't what you need to be listening to in that case.
Nah, that's great.
All right, thanks guys for checking out this review. In the meantime, please check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic. Please rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe. Check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and please spread the word on there. And if you like what we're doing and you want to help keep the show going, please consider contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com/thevault. Even $1 a month will help us more than you can imagine. So until the next review, go check out all our old ones, and we'll see you next time.